Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are going to talk about 5 things to make your marriage unshakable. Now, I hope that doesn't sound too cliche or stupid, because unshakable is a word that every marketing person in the world uses. And I'm a marketing person, copywriter, so that's why maybe I'm over familiar with it. But there are obviously more than 5 things that can make a marriage solid and strong. But today we're just going to talk about 5 of these. But what's the first thing we're going to talk about?
The cheesy marriage cliche of the week.
Cheesy marriage cliches. In case you don't know what that is, those are those stupid little pieces of marriage advice that you always hear when people ask for marriage advice, and it's like that really lame cliche answer. Like everybody's repeated it for decades, and their grandfather before them repeated it, and their grandfather before them. But nobody actually stopped to think. Piece of hair right there. If you're watching this online, I have a piece of hair floating near my mouth. That was weird. But yeah, so it's these pieces of marriage advice that people just repeat, but nobody actually ever seems to think about before they repeat it. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of makes you look really bad if there are any real thinking people around. Because most people who say these kinds of things, they don't think about it, and they usually aren't able to actually intelligently explain or defend their position with these things. Mm-hmm. So today's thing is something that usually is said to men and a lot of times by other men. What is it, Jamie? What's the cheesy marriage cliche of the week?
You can be right or you can be happy.
All right, so guys, according to this, we can either be right or we can be happy. Pardon my French, but I don't know what kind of bitch you married if that's your life and that's your marriage.
Yeah.
Dang. Seriously. So in other words, what this is saying is even if you are actually right, you can be right, if maybe you actually are right, or you can be happy. So you can't be right and happy. In other words, your wife is going to shame you and make your life miserable and act out negatively toward you if you're right. So in other words, the only way for you to be happy is to just let her just concede and let her think she's right, even if she's wrong. So let me ask you this. If somebody is truly wrong about something, and you're not just trying to beat them over the head, but if they're truly wrong about something, if you actually love that person, if you truly love that person, you will correct them.
Yeah.
Because depending on the situation, it could actually work against them or do harm to them if they think something is right and it's not.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't just walk out in the street and start hitting people. Well, you don't want to tell that to your wife, Brian, because you can be right or you can be happy. Now, I know that's an extreme example, but there are some things that if somebody doesn't know any better and you don't correct them, they can actually get in more trouble or get hurt. So it would actually you would actually have to hate that person, really, to not correct it. Or to say, okay, well, you're not right. But people are so afraid of that.
Well, not only that, but then I also think of so sometimes he'll have a whole bunch of guys come over for a campfire. And some of them come up to me and they're like, oh, thank you so much for letting him have us over. Letting him have people over?
Say that again. There's a loud redneck truck that just drove by. And it made noise.
So again, a couple guys will come up to me because they'll have guys come over for campfires and stuff. And,
I have a big fire pit in the backyard.
They'll come up to me and they'll say, thank you so much for letting him have us over. Letting him?
Yeah, well, the assumption is that, my wife lets me have friends over. Like, what kind of control freak did you marry if you use that phrase?
Yeah.
Or if you have used it, what's your point in using it if you're not married to a control freak? Because my wife doesn't let me do anything. I don't let my wife do anything. She and I, we do what we want. Now, we do consult each other if it's a decision that involves both of us and can affect our family or relationship.
Or finances or anything like that.
Yeah, but we don't ask for permission.
No.
It's like, who does that? But you can be right or you can be happy. you know what? I'm not a real egotistical person, but I'll be honest. I absolutely love it when I'm right. I am happy when I'm right. If I'm in a debate or an argument and I win, I'm happy and I'm right. I don't feel bad at all. I mean, it feels great to be right. I don't know about any of you listening to this right now, but being right feels great.
Yeah.
But the implied thing, though, again, here is that if you're right, that means your spouse, typically a woman in this case, is not going to allow you to be happy. You married a manipulator. You married a con. You married a person with some serious mental health issues, more than likely. I can't diagnose it. I'm not a professional. I only play one on TV. But I don't actually play it on TV. But yeah, if you can't be right and happy, you know, some of the happiest couples we know who have been married for years, some of the most common things we hear them say is, you know, when it comes to their marriage, they never really try to be right. And, you know, if they're wrong, like they really don't have any dog in the show or in the game. Just they're like, hey, I was wrong, or okay, well, if that's how you see it, okay, you know, like they're not trying to be right all the time, and they don't care if their spouse has a good point and whatever. It's just not that big a deal, and it's the ego that gets in there that does that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So husbands, men, don't go telling your buddies. You know, if someone asks you for marriage advice, please, for the love of everything that is holy and unholy, don't say you can be right or you can be happy. Mm-hmm. That is not true.
No, it's not.
I'm often right and I'm often happy at the same time. And other times, Jamie's right and happy. Other times, we're right and miserable, and vice versa. It has to do with the maturity of the person you're married to, as well as you. And so it comes down to maturity. And openness and putting your ego aside. I mean, if you can't do that kind of stuff, you probably aren't married, or you won't be for very long, or you're probably on your 4th or 5th marriage, and let me guess, it was always your ex's fault. Never had anything to do with you. You were always the victim, right? And people like that tend to be. Yeah, there's a lot of hair floating around in here, isn't there? Maybe that's what I was looking at.
Cat hair.
If you're just listening online on the podcast, Jamie just pulled a piece of hair off my cheek. I think it's the one I was trying to get. But yeah. So anyway, all right. So today's my throat. The content today: 5 things to make your marriage unshakable. There are, again, more than 5 things, but these are 5 things that we found help make marriages unshakable. So if you're struggling in your marriage, or you just want to keep your marriage strong, take note of these 5 things.
Yeah.
What's the first one, Jamie?
Be willing to talk about anything and everything.
Have you ever had a time in your marriage when certain things were off limits to talk about? It's like, we're not going there. Like, you know not to bring up that topic, quote unquote, that topic. Are there things you can't talk about, or you know better than to talk about that? Or, boy, if I bring that up, I mean, it's going to be Pandora's box. It's opening a can of worms. It's opening a floodgate that cannot be closed or undone. If you have something like that in your marriage, that is an enemy. That is a ticking time bomb. And you really don't have a whole lot of control over what's going to happen after the fact, unless you are the one that initiates it and guides the journey along, and tries to keep it sane for whatever reason. Yeah. You know, that can happen in a lot of different areas. We were talking about some of the areas that were like, what?
Like money.
Like money.
Like how we, think about it differently sometimes, like because of how we grew up.
Yeah. I mean, neither of us grew up with money.
No.
But I know that people who, like, some people are raised in wealthy families, other people are raised in poor families. Mm-hmm. Rich people and poor people, by the way, they don't think about money the same way.
No, they don't.
And it has to do, I mean, getting more money or lacking money has everything to do with how you think about it and how you use it. So if you have somebody who grew up poor and they were just taught spend everything you've got, well, even the Bible says a fool spends all he has. Yeah. So if you get your paycheck and you go spend 100% of it, well, even the Bible says you're an idiot. So you might want to take note of that. Like, that's not wise. Mm-hmm. You know, you raised in a rich family. You were taught, hey, go make $1,000 and go put that into something that will make you $5,000 or $10,000. Or you're taught, hey, go into a career where every sale you make has recurring commissions. So you're making money while you're not working. One of the financial habits of very wealthy people, almost every wealthy person I personally know, is they take the money they earn and they put those into assets that can make money for them while they're not there and working to make it. And the more of those you have, the more money you're going to have. But let's say I wanted to take some money and invest it in some type of business thing, just a low amount. Maybe it's $1,000. I want to put it into some sort of investment or something that can make us more money with that. But then I got to fight with Jamie because she wants that new Coach purse. That new Coach purse that costs as much as, your first car. But, you got to have it. Well, she wants it. And she's going to be mad if she doesn't get it. And that means, guys, maybe you're not going to get very much sex for the next 3 months. Or she's going to throw it in your face every time. Or she's going to whine to her friends and her mama about how you're not taking care. How's that going to do for you financially? I mean, if you spend everything you earn, if that's one person's way of looking at it, you're going to be broke. They're going to get in credit card debt because they have no savings to cover the things that happen in life.
But I think you have to have a good balance of that. Like, I think if you have a good lump sum that you randomly get, it's good to put most of it in savings or do something with it that can make you more. But it's also important to enjoy a little bit of it. I think it's a good. You have to find the balance. Yeah,
you definitely want to enjoy life, but you also have to tell your money where to go. If you don't tell it where to go, it's going one direction, and that's away from your bank account into somebody else's. And then they'll tell it where to go, and they'll be doing a lot better than you very soon. Mm-hmm. Not that you should care how well other people are doing, but money being one of the number one causes of divorce, money fights, that's pretty important to get on the same page and say, are you the free spirit or are you the big saver? Who's the big spender here? Mm-hmm. And you don't believe it happens. You probably do. You're probably not as aware of how bad of a problem this is. Most people. One of my public speaking and business mentors, a guy named Larry Wingett. If you haven't heard Larry, you're missing out. And if you have heard Larry, you'll never forget Larry. He's unforgettable. Yeah. And Larry had a TV show on A&E years ago called Big Spender. Mm-hmm. And he would go into people's houses. They just overspend everything. The guy doesn't work. He's watching TV 8 hours a day. His kid doesn't have money for school, lunch at school, or new shoes. The wife has there's this tiny closet in this tiny apartment, but it's full of thousands of dollars of shoes and purses and name brand designer stuff. Larry goes in there and goes, you know what, lady? You don't love your kids. You love purses. And they just get mad. Mm-hmm. But it's right. It's right. Yeah. Where you spend your money. The guy spends, smokes 3 packs of cigarettes a day, spends $300 a month on cigarettes. But his kid doesn't have, shoes that fit him or pants that fit him and can't afford lunch at school. Mm-hmm. And he sits on his rear end all day on the couch watching TV instead of going out and getting a job or 3. Yeah. And so, this stuff happens. If you don't cover it, if you don't get on the same page with it, it can bring you down. And it's one of the biggest things that actually does bring marriages down. Yep. Another thing that does is sex. The other thing besides money that nobody ever talked about, turns out everyone had it, but nobody ever talked about it, especially if you grew up in a church setting or more of a conservative or religious setting like we did. Mm-hmm. Sex is one of those things that everyone has their preferences, and people evolve over time. People evolve over time in every way. Yeah. If you marry somebody at 20, 21 years old, you're not going to be married to the same person when you're 35. That's a different person. They've evolved and grown, hopefully. I've said it before on here. I'm 36 right now, and if I was the same as I was when I was 13, we probably wouldn't have a very good marriage. Yeah. Don't ever change. Are you kidding me? Please change. And let's change together and grow together. Yeah. But people have different likes and things with sex. And,
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons people have bad sex lives is because they don't communicate about it.
Yeah, they're embarrassed.
Yeah, they're embarrassed or ashamed, or like they really want to experience something with their spouse, but they're afraid, what will they think of me? Or, and there's all these things that, and then you have to unpack, well, where does that sense of shame or where does that fear come from?
Yeah, where does it come from?
Like, where's the root of that?
Yeah.
iPad's going off. Here we go. Make sure that's off. But, yeah, so you want to think about, we say in the marriage battle plan that the thing you think is the enemy is actually not the enemy.
Yeah.
The enemy is the thing that lays just beneath the surface of the obvious, and it's the root cause of the problem or the hang-up you face in your marriage. It's that thing that's causing it. I use the example, in Afghanistan, the enemy would bury bombs in the road. The bombs in the road were not the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy was the person burying the bombs in the road every day.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's in money or your sex life, and you're not explaining what you want or how you like it or whatever, everyone's got their preferences. You're not doing that, and then you're resentful toward your spouse because you're not getting satisfied the way you want. But how do they know? Because after all, they don't read minds.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't feel like you can tell them. And this is something we were on another podcast earlier today talking about this, and I said, if somebody doesn't feel like they can approach you and talk to you about something, I said, that's your fault.
Yeah.
And I was actually using myself as an example. If Jamie doesn't feel like she can approach me and talk to me about money, sex, kid, whatever, a situation that comes up, if she feels like I can't approach Brian, I don't want to cause trouble, well, that's my fault. I've somehow set that precedence somewhere where I'm unapproachable. So you got to look in the mirror too, because you may have unintentionally set that precedence, maybe in the bedroom or with money or whatever, where, somebody goes, man, I can't be honest with them, or I can't, and then you suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And the best things happen when you get to a point where you want to talk and you don't really care how they judge or if they do, or if, and a lot of times the outcome is not anything like you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so what's another one, Jamie?
Do stuff together.
Or I'm sorry, no, the be willing to talk about anything and everything. What's another topic?
Oh, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Discipline. How are you going to discipline your kids? Do you spank them, not spank them? Do you sit them in the corner? Do you just talk to them? Or do you go get the leather belt and there's a very clear message sent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unmistakable.
Because one person might grow up differently than the other person. And so then you have to communicate clearly together on how you're going to raise your kids and how you're going to discipline them. And you don't wait till an incident happens where you're trying to correct your kid. You do it before you need to do that.
Yeah, and that also comes down to knowing what type of correction gets through most effectively to each kid.
Yeah.
Because
that's different too for each kid.
Yeah, a kid like me, a leather belt got my attention. But you could do that to a different kid who, it just kind of crushes them. Like they just, like emotionally. Like me, I've never been that way. Like I'm the donkey that needs the 2x4 smacked in its face. Like, and that's how I learn. Like, yeah. It's the most effective way. In fact, people who were too nice to me growing up, if it was go sit in the corner, which I never got, I just would have laughed at them. Like, go sit in the corner? Okay, here, I'm sitting in the corner. I mean, I made a total mockery out of them. I wouldn't have taken them seriously. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But with other people, you have to take a different approach. And it's not about what's right or wrong. That's all relative to how you grew up and your personal opinion. But it's about what's most effective for that particular kid, that they get the lesson and the correction, and that they don't tend to keep doing that same bad thing.
Yeah.
And that's that right there. That lesson right there just made your marriage a lot easier if you got it. I never even heard that scenario growing up. Like, I mean, everybody got the belt. It's like across the board. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, same.
And growing up, it was just me and my brother, so we were both boys, and so whatever. But it didn't, it worked for both of us. But the thought of, hey, there might be a more effective way for one of these kids than the other, taking something away, or it all depends. It all depends. But some kids are it's more effective discipline one way or another with different kids.
Yeah, for sure.
What'd you say here? You said hobbies, goals, and dreams.
Oh, yep. Hobbies, goals, and dreams. Been able to talk about those.
Yeah, I mean,
with me going back to school, that was something that we had to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, Jamie, at this point of this recording, is pursuing her dream, going back to college to become a school teacher. She's always wanted to teach elementary, and what that does when she starts, it takes her away from the house. She has more huge responsibilities. That means she won't be at the house some of the time, or she'll be busy studying, and it jumbles with everybody's schedule. It's like in any unit or a platoon or a group of people, what one person does affects everybody in some way, whether you're here or you're not here. And okay, that means, do I have to pick up the kids from school every single day, or just 4 days a week now, as opposed to maybe once or twice a week? Well, that affects my schedule with the consulting I do, the copywriting I do, or if I'm on the road speaking, and now it's like, well, who's going to pick up the kids, or who's going to take them to jiu-jitsu, or there's not going to be any time for dinner in between there, or youth group, or all of it gets affected. So if you have goals and dreams, you have to be able to be willing to talk about anything and everything concerning those.
Yeah.
And that was one thing we did when you decided to go back to college. I was never, we talked about this in a previous episode, but I was never against you going back. But I was making sure you understood the dark side of it. Like, what it's actually going to cost to go back with time and effort and schedule and everything else that you're sacrificing, time with family, for studying or being over at the college. And so that was just making sure you understood what the true cost of this is going to be, because it did affect our daily schedule, and it will continue to. And so we have to be cool with that. We have to be on the same page with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I'm doing a lot of talking again. So Jamie, go ahead and kick off number 2.
Okay, so number 2 is do stuff together do stuff together and learn and grow together. And here's what I put right here. Because you want to, not because you have to.
So do stuff together because you both want to, not out of some sort of sense of obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know for us, like, one thing that we do almost daily is we go for walks around the pond. We'll go, like, sometimes even twice a day. Sometimes we'll go in the morning and do a walk, and sometimes we'll go in the evening and do a walk. And half the time, like, we'll get halfway around the pond. It's a little pond in our neighborhood that we walk around.
It's about a half mile around.
And sometimes we'll get halfway around it and don't really even say anything. I know last night we really didn't until we were about halfway around it. So it's not even like we're not doing it because I
don't think we even noticed that we didn't say anything.
No. And no, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not doing it, we have to make our quota for our date this week or anything like that. Like, we're going
to have 3 alone times this week at 7:19 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like, if your schedule's that stupid busy, man, I feel bad for you. But
yeah.
if you have to schedule stuff like that, or I hear people say the same thing about scheduling sex, like, hey, whatever.
Monday and Wednesday, we're going to have sex. What?
At 7:18 p.m., like nothing sounds more boring. Now, if you have a super busy schedule, I get it. I just, in our experience, spontaneity is way more fun. Mm-hmm. But the whole point with that is that you're doing it because you want to. Mm-hmm. Like, both of you want to. And there's no agenda. We're not out there to accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to get Jamie to believe something or get on my side before we get back to the house or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's no agenda. We have nothing in particular to talk about. And sometimes we don't. Mm-hmm. And we just talk about whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. Or learning and growing together. That we read books together. We like to read books together.
Yeah. In fact, I've got one right here. Oh, let's it's a huge stack of books. Oh, it's all gonna fall.
Oh well.
If you're watching this online, you can't see this if you're listening to the podcast. This is a great one by one of my business mentors. It's called Scary Close by Donald Miller.
Yeah.
And
it's one of our favorites.
Yeah, we've read it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And, he talks about dropping the act and finding true intimacy. I don't like the word intimacy. It just has a connotation to it. He talks about just not being fake, being real.
Yeah.
And there's so much in there.
So good.
That he talks about. I would highly recommend you grab Scary Close.
Such a good book.
I don't get anything for that. Not an affiliate or anything like that. It's just a great book. Mm-hmm. And and when we do that, do we sit there and read like half the book in a night?
No, we do like a chapter a night. Like just read one chapter. And sometimes we'll even get through a whole chapter.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we'll get through half of a chapter and we're like, oh, we just start talking the rest of the time.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, a lot of people say, oh gosh, I don't have time to read, let alone with my spouse. But the thing is, sometimes, like you said, we'll read like one page. Mm-hmm. Or half of a page, and something will jump out. And so that took, 30 seconds to a minute? And then 37 minutes later, we find we're still discussing that point.
Yeah.
In other words, we just had a great in-depth discussion about something. That's a conversation we never, ever would have had if we wouldn't have just picked up a book and said, let's just read. Yeah, you can just read till you hit a point that strikes you. Yeah. And then discuss it. Mm-hmm. It breeds communication. And another thing it does, and I've said this before, but it allows you to sometimes talk about topics that maybe one of you or both of you want to talk about, but you just don't know how to bring it up. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's of a sexual nature, or maybe it was an abuse of some sort from somewhere, or some sort of touchy, uncomfortable topic. Well, when you read that in a book, it's sort of like a third-party perspective. It introduces that topic in between you. Yeah. And now you can have that discussion without really being the one that brought it up. Mm-hmm. Because that can bring with it connotations, or, she's like, well, why is he bringing that up now? Or he could be the same way. Mm-hmm. And, it allows you to have conversations that you wouldn't normally have. And it can help with those touchy topics. So, yeah, mm-hmm. Scary Close by Donald Miller. Excellent book. If you don't have it, go get it. Probably be to your house in 2 days on Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. Traveling.
Yeah, we love to travel together. Even if it's just a couple hours away. Like, it don't have to be far.
What's the last one we did? Oklahoma City?
Oh, yeah, for my birthday.
Yep. So, a couple months ago, what did we do?
We just had his mom watch the kids for us, and
over a weekend.
Over just the weekend. So I think we left out on was it a Saturday?
It was like a Friday night maybe. Or a Saturday morning. Yeah.
Oh, it was Friday night. Friday night.
Spent 2 nights.
And we went just literally right over the border of Oklahoma.
Because we live in North Texas.
And stayed right near a casino, and then the next day we went into Oklahoma City, I believe it was, right?
Yeah, we found a boutique hotel, just one night.
It was fun.
It was a nice hotel, and it was a little pricier than usual, but it was only one night, so it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
I keep yawning.
Yeah, we ate a lot of good food, hung out, did some things, and yeah.
And it was my birthday falls on like Valentine's Day weekend, so we didn't really want to go out on Valentine's Day. So I remember at the boutique hotel, we just got an Uber, brought us Chipotle to our room. And we watched.
No, I didn't get her Chipotle for our Valentine's Day dinner, just so you know.
Oh no.
So yeah, I took her to an amazing crab boil place called Crab Town in Bricktown
for lunch, and it was really
good. Which, if you haven't been there, you need to go there. They take a giant bucket of corn on the cob, potatoes, crab legs, lobster, and they dump that giant thing all over the table. Everyone eats from it. It's amazing. They have some sort of like Cracker Jack, caramel, vanilla.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Dessert. It was like...
It had ice cream in it with caramel and popcorn and...
it was like caramel corn with, oh my gosh.
It was really good. Whatever it was amazing.
Yeah, so we did that. Now, there have been other times where we're like, hey, let's just find a campground and go for a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we'll find a campground like a KOA that has cabins. It's like $80 for a night. You know, and it's an hour away or an hour and a half. Okay, great. And it's like, my point is, you don't have to travel, you know, across the country.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Have a ton of money. Just, I mean, do what you can, but like make that time.
Yeah.
Because we found we enjoy seeing things together. We enjoy experiencing things together. You know, we're not so big on, hey, I gotta have that new BMW M series. You know, that like I've got to have the new one, or like, oh man, like I've just got like. We found that we're less obsessed with spending money on things, but on experiences.
Absolutely.
Like making memories. That's what's more important to us.
Yeah.
Like we've had fancy cars in the past, and we don't anymore just because we choose not to. You know, who wants to pay all that stinking money just to, you know, fix one little thing? It's like I could have went on a vacation. Yeah, I could have went on vacation for what it cost to replace that computer chip in my old Mercedes. You know? $1,300, a little computer chip to the relay system. Oh, $1,300. Okay. Hey, it's $1,300. Whatever. It's like, okay, I've got it. But like, man, do you know what we could have done with $1,300? Yeah. You can't get an oil change at Walmart. Got to go to the dealership. Well, you know what that means. More money.
Money.
More money and more problems. Yeah. So, we've discovered that we like traveling together. Mm-hmm. Having experiences together. So what is it for you? Like, you know, what stuff do you do together? What do you learn? How do you learn and grow together? What do you enjoy together? Mm-hmm. What's interesting is the first, man, we've been married over 15 years now, but like the first, 7, 8, 10 years of our marriage, we actually always used to talk about how we have no hobbies in common. Mm-hmm. We just didn't.
Yeah.
We had to like discover these things, and I think if we would have knew how to communicate better and didn't have so many we really feel like we have a lot of built-in guard things in our minds that we were raised with, like like we understand, hey, don't do wrong things, but in a lot of ways, you know, a lot of us were raised that like everything is wrong. Well, that actually holds you back when things aren't actually wrong. It's like, oh well, people said this thing or that thing was wrong, but it's actually not. You know, but it took you like 9 years into marriage to realize, you know, there isn't anything wrong with that. And it's like we could have been enjoying that like the whole time, except we had this bad programming that was probably well intentioned, but it was put into us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it holds you back in your marriage.
Yeah.
I've known people who have been from churches who are divorced, and they're like, oh yeah, the church totally, you know, being raised in church totally messed up our sex life, and that was the big thing that destroyed our marriage. Nobody was communicating. And certain details or whatever, I don't know the details, but it was a flawed programming, a flawed belief about a very important part of marriage that actually ruined one of my friend's marriages. And he said, oh yeah, and now he's just like, he goes off the deep end when he talks about it, because it was one of the things that the linchpins that just, it was the last straw that broke and ended his marriage. So very sad. Yeah. But yeah. So what's the next one, Jamie?
Have lots of sex.
Have lots of sex. You should run into your church next week and scream that. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I mean, unless it's a bunch of married people. And yeah.
Yeah, it says discuss your curiosities together.
Talk about that. I'll let her do it.
Well, like what things you like in the bedroom and what things you don't like in the bedroom.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has things that turn them on. In fact, in one of the previous episodes, what was it called? How to have great sex.
Yeah.
We talked a lot on that.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things again that hold people back from doing that, from discussing the curiosities or things that, you know, like they want to try or just how they like things? Like, what are some of the things that hold people back?
Well, they're either embarrassed or the fear of being judged. And then I even put embarrassed and fear of judgment equals holds you back. So like being that way will hold you back from having a great sex life. Yeah.
I mean, you know, and again, go listen to that episode. In fact, I think it was the last episode we did right before this one.
I think so.
But we talk about that a lot. And, you know, again, people have programming Life gets very interesting when you realize how much you've been programmed from the day you were born when it comes to certain things, certain topics, and how to live, things like that. Most people just don't question that programming, and they're afraid to, or they're taught not to. They're taught it's a sin if you question what you were told to believe. I will tell you right now, anytime somebody tells you don't question what I'm teaching you, you should be very concerned about listening to that person, because that's usually called manipulation and tyranny. It's called communism. Yeah. This is how it is. Don't question it. Like, okay, don't question it. Do you know I've questioned things in my life because the truth never has any reason to hide. What am I afraid of? The truth is going to be even more the truth. I mean, in whatever sense we mean the truth about a topic. And so, don't let a lack of conversation destroy that part of your marriage.
Yeah.
So, however you need to break into that, again, I mean, if you're reading a book and it brings up the topic of sex, or maybe you listen to a YouTube video and this is the topic of sex, and you hear somebody say something, maybe that's an opportunity for you to say, hey, you know how she said this, or you know how he said that? What are your thoughts on that? You can start going into that discussion, and maybe feel a little safer if you feel like your spouse is not going to be open to discussing things. We said in the last episode, pretty much, and I say pretty much, if something is consensual, there are very few things that we would actually say are wrong in this area if they're consensual by both people. It just is. Again, I'm telling you, go back and listen to that episode, the previous one.
Yeah, it was good.
We get into Mark Driscoll's book that he wrote with his wife. I don't have it here with me, but
yeah.
He's a pastor of a church. They wrote on, you will never hear a pastor talk on these specific topics about sex. He wrote about it in this book, and they were very clear. And
it was really good. It was really interesting.
Yeah, they also talked about scriptures. Here's what this scripture says. And
here's what it actually means.
Here's what it actually means. Or here's the one that is always used to make this point, but here's why it's out of context and what it actually meant, and historically, and when this happened. And you go, wow, okay. So maybe you're not just a weirdo or a pervert or who knows why God makes us the way he does? Who knows?
Yeah.
But if you're open and consensual with your spouse, pretty much, again, there's exceptions to everything, but pretty much there's not a whole lot, that you two shouldn't enjoy together, as long as like both people are okay with that, and nobody's health is being risked, or anything like that. But anyway, next one, number 4 of the 5 things that make your marriage unshakable.
Know your spouse's communication style.
You want to talk about that?
Well, there was a quiz that we took that was called the Life Languages test.
Yeah, if you Google Life Language Institute, it's the only thing that comes up. Yeah. So what did that do?
So it just kind of told us kind of how we best communicate.
How we give and receive communication.
Yeah.
And there was 7 different kinds.
I think so.
So once you learned what yours was, you learned all about it, but then you also learned
what yours was.
Well, you learned what yours was, but you also learned how you best communicate with all the other styles. So you're one style, I'm another. It actually told each of us, based on our own style, how to most effectively communicate with somebody of that other particular style. So it was literally saying, hey, Brian, you can just say this way that you're thinking, but if you rephrase it this other way, she'll not only hear it, but she'll probably receive it better.
And vice versa.
And maybe be more compliant. So, Jamie, you are what's called a responder.
High responder.
It's like 99%.
Like 98%
and what does that mean?
Responder. Which means whenever I'm thinking about saying something, I think about how it's going to make everybody in the room feel first before I say it.
And mine is called a mover. And it was pretty much the same percentage.
It's complete opposite of me.
I mean, if you just pictured like a SWAT team kicking in a door and taking what they want, it's kind of like that. it is the opposite end of the spectrum completely from Jamie's.
Yeah.
And it basically says, hey, we can talk, but right now we have a mission to accomplish. We'll talk and become friends later. Let's get this done. Like if we have something to do. And it's very just kind of blunt. It's, again, people who are too flowery with me, trying to beat around the bush to not hurt my feelings. I'm the kind of person that just says, look, stop. Just say what you're trying to say, buddy. Like, just say it, would you? Like, you're really annoying me right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, stop trying to dress it up. Mm-hmm. Like, and...
Stop hovering. Just say what you're trying to say.
Yeah, like, just get to the point. Because I'm the kind of person that, to be most effectively communicating with me, just get to the point. I'm not going to sit around and listen all day. I'm not going to try and guess what you're alluding to or trying to imply. It's like, I'm not. Like, I'm just like, I'm not. And I tell her that a lot. Look, if you have a point, just say it. Because I don't have time. I'm too busy right now. Not all the time, but like sometimes right now it's like, I don't have time to try to guess what you're saying. Just say it.
Yeah. Now,
the reason that happens is because she's trying to be careful if she doesn't offend me. Well, my style says, just say it. Now, vice versa, if I'm
but when he tries to tell me something...
Jamie, just get to the point. Like, that sounds pretty mean.
Then I'm just like, if you want to try to talk to me about something, you can't. You can't do it the way that he best receives it. Like, at all. Like, no.
So to best communicate with her most effectively, I had to go, okay, I want to tell Jamie... Just get to the point. Be like, honey, I want to understand.
Honey? You don't call me honey.
I know. I'm being cliche. I want to understand what you're saying. I don't know that I do. But here's what I think you're saying. Is this right? Those are good words, by the way. But being very calm and flowery and... Am I wrong?
Flowery.
Am I hearing you right? Me, it's just like...
Flowery.
Yeah. Just trying to be too soft because if I'm... And there gets a point, right? Like, if once or twice of doing that, if I haven't broken through, I just sort of immediately revert back to Brian and go, look.
Immediately goes to Sergeant Fleming.
What do you want? It's like in the Notebook. What do you want? She goes, I don't know what I want. And I'm like, what do you want? The guy is so clear. He's like, what do you want? What do you want? That's 4 words. And in the history of humanity, no woman can answer that question.
Especially when it comes to picking a restaurant for food. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
Yes. So, know your spouse's communication style. We highly recommend the life languages.
Yes.
It's not love languages. That's different. Life languages.
That is another good one, though. But yeah. This one is life languages, though.
Well, the love languages talks about how you receive love.
Yeah.
The life languages talks about how you give and receive, how you give and receive communication.
Yeah.
And so, that's literally, like, I think the best.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we've taken everything there is out there, all these, like, surveys and all these assessments. That's probably the best one we ever taken when it comes to how to communicate.
I think that's why we mention it every, anytime we get the chance, because it was so good.
Yeah, and we don't make any money on that. We're just telling you because it's, we're not affiliates. Even though I'm friends with their CEO, we don't make anything on it. It's just a killer resource. I think it's like $40 one time. Mm-hmm. So $40 each. And you have to look at it this way, though. If it saves you from getting divorced, is that worth $40?
I was about to say that.
What's a divorce cost?
Mm-hmm.
Have you checked
a lot
divorce rates lately, Jamie?
No.
I haven't either. I think it depends on how much money you have.
But I imagine a lot.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Fifth and final. We're coming down.
One. Stop thinking you're always right.
That's hard for some people.
And there's a quote.
You want me to read it?
Yep.
It's a quote that is attributed to Mark Twain. I don't know if he actually said it or if it's somebody else, but Mark Twain in this case says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Have you ever known somebody who's extremely confident in what they're saying? They're very confident. People believe them just because they look and sound confident. Mm-hmm. So many people like that, so often, they're just straight up wrong with whatever they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, they are confidently wrong. passionately wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They're so confident and passionate and commanding of attention. Yeah, and what they're teaching you is just completely wrong. Like, the answer is wrong. There's nothing right in it.
Yeah. Yep.
And that happens in marriage sometimes, though.
Mm-hmm.
If you're married to a narcissist, you experience this every second of every day.
Yeah.
You're either going to divorce that person eventually, or you're going to stay married and hate the marriage you chose for your one life, and you will get to a point in life later on where you will regret having stayed with them. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying get divorced, stay married. I don't know your situation, justification. Every marriage is an individual case when it comes to what is justifying for a divorce. But
yeah,
I mean, think about it though. Stop thinking you're always right. If I am of the opinion that I think I'm right, but I know there's a possibility maybe I'm missing something, and Jamie, you have that same mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to have knockdown dragouts and fights and things like that a lot of people, including us, that you have dealt with in the past? If we're both like, hey, well, I think I'm right, but I'm also open to the fact that maybe there might be something I'm missing. Maybe I'm not seeing everything.
Yeah, like I don't know what. I mean, we wouldn't fight about that if we both have that mindset.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get along when you know and you are very well aware of your own humanity, and that maybe you're missing something because nobody knows everything.
Yeah.
Or maybe the thing you're missing is just the fact that you think the argument's about one thing, but it's actually about another, and your spouse is thinking about that other thing, but you think it's about something else. And so you're not even arguing about the same thing. We always say with Marriage BattlePlan, if we can just get people arguing about the same thing, that's a win.
Yeah.
Because so many times people just aren't. They're coming from two different angles at some foreign object. They don't know what it is. And everyone's just trying to be right. Mm-hmm. So, stop thinking you're always right, Jamie.
Back at you, babe.
Yeah. It'll save your marriage. Save a lot of money. You like having money? Don't get divorced. I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of friends get divorced. We've never done. Neither of us have ever been through that. But one friend said years ago, man, you think getting married is expensive? Try getting divorced. I'm like, no thanks. Oh, so look, these are the 5 things to make your marriage unshakable. These are 5 things. There are many things. Mm-hmm. And, we always try to be as transparent and real as possible. In these episodes, we're not those people on social media that are always taking selfies going, hey, look at us and how much we love each other. But they're, after they take it, they're yelling and swearing at each other, which we do that too sometimes. Hey, we get mad. Oh my gosh, you yell and swear at each other? Yeah, we do. And I've got a mouth on me. And so does this one. Trust me, she only looks innocent. But not as bad as me. But you know what?
But we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And we don't try to be.
Exactly. And maybe the yelling and swearing isn't your thing. Maybe when your spouse really grinds you, maybe you're just quiet for 2 days and you don't talk to them. You do the silent treatment. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got their quote-unquote middle finger that they give to their spouse.
Yeah.
They just have their own way of doing it. Maybe it's yelling and swearing. Maybe it's not talking to them, silent treatment. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's withholding sex or some other need or doing... Like, everyone's got their way of doing things. Mm-hmm. But if you can just get on the same page, if you can stop listening to the cheesy cliche marriage advice, like you can be right or you can be happy, that's a crock. Mm-hmm. But again, just to revise these, we're about done. Just to review these. Mm-hmm. What are the 5, Jamie? Number 1?
Be willing to talk about anything and everything.
Number 2?
Do stuff together and learn and grow together.
Yep.
Have lots of sex. That's number 3.
Who doesn't want that? Seriously. I mean, maybe some people, but I don't know. Or I wouldn't.
Yeah. Number 4, know your spouse's communication style. And number 5, stop thinking you're always right.
Yeah. So look, if this was helpful for you, we actually have an online program called the Marriage BattlePlan, where we teach you a very simple process for how to communicate effectively with your spouse so you can actually enjoy the marriage you've always wanted, the one that you actually envisioned on your wedding day.
Yeah.
Because nobody on their wedding day goes, man, I can't wait for 2.5 years in, and we lose everything. We sell the house. The kids are broken up and emotionally destroyed, and all the money we ever had is just gone, and lawyer fees and legal fees, and now our relationships are broken, our hearts are broken. Nobody plans on doing that. Mm-hmm. And one of the big reasons that happens is because people do not communicate effectively. So if you go to marriagebattleplan.com, there's an online course there. A very simple online course. It's a video course. Jamie and I created that, and we teach you proven military battlefield strategies, battlefield communication strategies that we use in the military to win actual battles in war zones. We adapted that to a marriage relationship so that couples can communicate effectively under fire or under stress or whatever it is in your marriage, so they can communicate effectively and get through it together and continue being married happily and productively. So if you want to know how to communicate better with your spouse and communicate effectively so you can have a better marriage, just go to marriagebattleplan.com. There's a link in the show notes here, and that will teach you how to communicate clearly with your spouse.